Ladies and gentlemen, imagine for a moment a life where fear, doubt, and worry no longer have a place. A life where you move through each day with a quiet assurance that everything is unfolding perfectly, even when it doesn't make sense to the human eye. This is the life that opens when you truly understand what it means to live by faith. Living by faith is not about blind optimism. It is not hoping for something to happen or wishing life would be easier. It is the conscious awareness of the invisible, the recognition that a higher intelligence, a guiding presence, is always at work within you and around you. When you live from this place, your every thought, action, and choice aligns naturally with life's deeper intelligence. One of the most profound effects of this understanding is freedom. Fear loses its grip. Worries that once weighed heavily on your mind begin to dissolve because you are no longer trying to control life through human effort alone. Faith teaches you that the universe or the divine presence supports you in ways you cannot always see, but can always trust. Inner peace becomes your companion. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It is not shaken by setbacks, misunderstandings, or disappointments. It flows from the deep recognition that life is intelligently guided and that you are always in the right place at the right time. You begin to move effortlessly, no longer pushing against the current, but flowing with it. Living by faith also transforms your relationship with challenges. Where you once saw obstacles, you now see opportunities for growth. Difficult situations are no longer burdens, they are invitations to trust more deeply, to let go of control, and to allow a higher wisdom to guide your steps. Perhaps most beautifully, living by faith is about allowing, not forcing. It is not about straining to manifest your desires, but about aligning with the spiritual truth that life's abundance flows to you naturally when you are in harmony with the source of all life. What you need appears not because you demanded it, but because your faith made space for it to enter. When you truly understand what it means to live by faith, life becomes a dance between your spirit and the infinite intelligence that surrounds you. You no longer live in fear, you no longer chase outcomes, and you no longer struggle against life. Instead, you live in the quiet joy of knowing that you are supported, guided, and loved in every moment. This is the transformative power of faith. It is not something you do, it is something you are. And as you step fully into this understanding, every moment of your life begins to shine with peace, freedom, and the unshakable certainty that all is well. Faith as the awareness of the invisible is a profound principle that shifts the way we perceive life. Most people live primarily through the lens of the senses, trusting only what they can see, touch, hear, or measure. When life presents challenges, uncertainties, or contradictions, the natural reaction is to panic, control, or manipulate circumstances to feel safe. But living by faith invites a radical change in perception, a shift from relying on the visible to recognizing the presence and power of the invisible. Faith is the conscious awareness that there is a greater reality underlying the physical world, a reality that is orderly, intelligent, and benevolent. It asks us to acknowledge that even when life seems uncertain or chaotic, there is a guiding intelligence at work, orchestrating circumstances beyond what the mind can comprehend. When you understand that faith is the awareness of the invisible, you begin to realize that everything in life is a reflection of a deeper spiritual truth. Every experience, every challenge, and every encounter carries meaning that may not be immediately apparent. You start to see that what is unseen, love, divine intelligence, creative power, or spiritual presence, is the real source of all that is visible. Your focus moves from reacting to external conditions to aligning with this invisible, ever-present force. It is a complete reversal of the ordinary way of living. Instead of seeking security, success, or happiness in material conditions, you begin to find them in the constant, unchanging reality that exists beyond appearances. Living with this awareness also changes the way you relate to your own thoughts and emotions. You recognize that your fears, doubts, and anxieties arise from an over-reliance on the visible world. They are natural signals that your attention has shifted away from the unseen source of life. By cultivating an awareness of the invisible, you learn to let go of the compulsion to control or predict outcomes. You understand that the invisible is infinitely wiser and more capable than the human mind. This realization brings a sense of ease and confidence, because you are no longer dependent on what you can see or what seems immediately possible. You begin to trust the process of life itself, knowing that everything unfolds according to a higher intelligence. Faith as the awareness of the invisible is not a passive concept, it is an active, living principle. It calls for a constant attention to the spiritual presence within and around you. It is a practice of noticing the quiet guidance, the subtle signs, and the inner nudges that come when you are in tune with life beyond the senses. Over time, this awareness reshapes your perception, your decisions, and your very being. You begin to experience life not as a series of random events, but as a harmonious expression of something far greater than yourself. The invisible becomes not only a source of comfort and guidance, but also the foundation upon which you build every action, thought, and intention. Faith as the awareness of the invisible transforms ordinary existence into a life lived with clarity, purpose, and deep connection to the source of all that is. When you begin to live by faith, one of the most profound shifts you experience is freedom from fear and worry. Fear and anxiety are natural responses when we rely solely on what we can see, understand, or control. They arise from the belief that our security, happiness, or success depends on circumstances that are constantly changing and often unpredictable. Living in this way, life can feel like a constant struggle, as though you are trying to hold on to sand that slips through your fingers no matter how tightly you grasp. Faith, however, introduces an entirely different perspective, one that changes the very foundation of your thinking and feeling. When you understand faith, you realize that fear has no real power over you because you are no longer dependent on the shifting patterns of the external world. Your trust is placed in a presence that is constant, intelligent, and infinitely capable. This understanding allows you to release the need to anticipate, control, or manipulate every detail of life, and it creates an inner space where peace and confidence can flourish. Freedom from fear and worry does not mean that you ignore challenges or pretend that difficulties do not exist. On the contrary, it means that you approach life with a clarity that sees beyond immediate appearances. You recognize that situations may change, obstacles may arise, and outcomes may appear uncertain, but you also know that there is an unchanging intelligence at work that can guide, protect, and provide. Fear loses its grip when you see that no matter what happens externally, the invisible reality, the divine source, spiritual presence, or inner intelligence is always present, always supporting you, and always leading you to what is truly best. This awareness replaces panic with patience, anxiety with calm, and struggle with surrender. It allows you to respond to life from a place of trust rather than reaction, from a sense of alignment rather than resistance. Worry, in particular, is rooted in the attempt to solve what cannot be solved by human effort alone. It comes from the illusion that you must figure everything out, predict every turn, and control every outcome. Faith teaches that this burden is unnecessary because life's intelligence works in ways far greater than your mind can comprehend. By letting go of worry, you stop expending energy on things outside your power and begin to focus on what can be done in alignment with higher guidance. Decisions are made more clearly, relationships are nurtured more patiently, and challenges are approached with confidence rather than dread. As fear and worry dissolve, a remarkable sense of freedom emerges. You no longer live in a state of tension or vigilance. Your energy is no longer consumed by what-ifs or hypothetical problems. Instead, it is available to engage fully with the present moment, to act decisively, and to experience life with joy and serenity. This freedom is not temporary or conditional, it becomes a stable state of being when faith is truly understood and lived. Life continues to present surprises and challenges, but these no longer dominate your consciousness or shake your inner foundation. You exist in a state of trust, guided by something greater than fear, grounded in a reality that is always supportive and liberated from the constant anxiety that once ruled your days. When you truly understand what it means to live by faith, one of the most profound transformations you experience is the emergence of inner peace as a constant companion. Most people spend their lives chasing external conditions, believing that happiness, comfort, and safety are found in circumstances, possessions, or relationships. This dependence on the changing world inevitably leads to tension, restlessness, and disappointment. Because the external world is unpredictable and ever-shifting, living by faith shifts your attention from the external to the internal, from the temporal to the eternal, revealing a source of calm that is unaffected by the fluctuations of life. This peace does not come as a reward for doing something right, nor is it contingent upon the absence of difficulties. It emerges naturally when your consciousness aligns with the deeper reality that underlies all appearances. Understanding inner peace as a constant begins with recognizing that life is not a series of random events, but an expression of an orderly, intelligent presence that pervades everything. When you live from this awareness, the mind no longer seeks control through worry or struggle, because it knows that the invisible reality supporting life is always present and always benevolent. Peace becomes not an occasional relief from stress, but a stable state of being that persists even when circumstances are challenging. You begin to observe life from a place of quiet assurance, knowing that no matter what happens on the surface, the underlying order of life cannot fail. This shift in perspective transforms the way you experience both ordinary and extraordinary moments, allowing you to move through life with clarity, patience, and grace. Inner peace also changes the way you respond to challenges. Difficult situations no longer trigger panic or resistance. Instead, they become opportunities to remain anchored in the stillness within. You realize that it is not the events themselves, but your relationship to them that determines your experience. When the mind is calm and grounded in faith, decisions are made with discernment rather than reaction, and actions flow naturally from a place of clarity rather than fear. You find that solutions often arise effortlessly, guidance becomes more apparent, and relationships are approached with greater understanding and compassion. The constancy of this peace allows you to move through life without being pulled off balance by temporary setbacks, misunderstandings, or disappointments, creating a sense of stability that is rare in a world defined by uncertainty. Living with inner peace as a constant also transforms your sense of self. You no longer define yourself by external success, validation, or material gain. Instead, your identity rests in the awareness of your connection to the infinite, the unchanging source of life. This connection fosters a deep sense of security, confidence, and freedom, because you know that you are supported at all times, regardless of circumstances. Inner peace becomes a lens through which you see the world, coloring every thought, word, and action with calmness, balance, and equanimity. As this peace deepens, it radiates outward, influencing every aspect of your life. Your interactions become gentler, your decisions wiser, and your perspective broader. The chaos of the world may continue, but it no longer disturbs the quiet strength you carry within. This constancy is the hallmark of a life lived in faith, where peace is not fleeting but enduring, not dependent on circumstances but anchored in the unchanging reality of spiritual truth. When you truly understand what it means to live by faith, one of the most transformative experiences is the sense of alignment with the universal flow. Most people live in resistance to life, constantly struggling to impose their own ideas, timing, and expectations on the world around them. They push, pull, and control, believing that success, happiness, or fulfillment depends on their ability to make life conform to their plans. Living by faith, however, invites a radical shift in perspective. It teaches that life has its own natural rhythm, an intelligent flow that is always moving, always providing, and always orchestrating circumstances in perfect harmony with the higher good. When you align with this flow, you stop forcing, stop resisting, and begin to move effortlessly through life, guided by an inner intelligence that knows what is right and true for you. Alignment with the universal flow begins with the realization that everything in life is interconnected and guided by a greater intelligence than the human mind can comprehend. When you accept this, you no longer feel the need to control outcomes, manipulate situations, or force results. Instead, you cultivate a conscious awareness of life's natural currents, learning to move with them rather than against them. This does not mean passivity or inaction, rather it means acting from a place of harmony, making decisions and taking steps that resonate with the deeper order of life. Opportunities, solutions, and ideas begin to appear more easily, often in ways that feel effortless, because you are no longer fighting against the natural unfolding of events. Living in alignment also brings a profound sense of timing and clarity. When you struggle against life, you encounter delays, obstacles, and frustration. When you align, the right people, resources, and circumstances come to meet you at the perfect moment. You develop an intuitive understanding of when to act, when to wait, and when to let life take its course. Challenges no longer feel like interruptions or punishments. They become invitations to adjust your pace, your perspective, or your approach, keeping you in harmony with the greater flow of existence. This alignment fosters a deep trust that life is always working for your benefit, even when the path is not immediately visible or understandable. Furthermore, alignment with the universal flow transforms the way you relate to effort and struggle. When you are out of harmony, life feels heavy, exhausting, and burdensome. When you are in harmony, effort becomes inspired rather than forced, and tasks are completed with ease and grace. You experience a sense of co-creation with life itself, recognizing that you are not pushing against a rigid world, but participating in a dynamic, intelligent process that supports your growth and well-being. As this alignment deepens, it permeates every area of life. Relationships become smoother, work becomes more productive, and daily activities feel more meaningful and effortless. You develop a subtle yet powerful sense of flow, a rhythm that carries you forward with confidence, trust, and ease. Life no longer feels like a series of struggles or random events. It becomes a harmonious dance in which your inner faith synchronizes perfectly with the intelligence that governs all things. When you fully understand what it means to live by faith, one of the most remarkable shifts that occurs is the realization that true manifestation arises from belief, not force. Most people approach life with the mindset that they must struggle, push, and strive in order to achieve their desires or solve their problems. They rely heavily on human effort, reasoning, and control, often exhausting themselves in the process, believing that persistence alone will bring the desired outcomes. Living by faith introduces a profound reversal of this approach. It teaches that the energy behind manifestation is not in struggle or compulsion, but in quiet, unwavering trust in the unseen power that governs all life. Manifestation occurs naturally when your consciousness is aligned with this power, when your belief becomes the fertile ground from which reality blossoms effortlessly. To live by faith is to recognize that the external world is a reflection of your inner state. When you attempt to force outcomes, you are acting from a place of doubt or resistance, which inevitably meets opposition and creates friction. In contrast, when you cultivate a deep belief in the invisible presence of life, you allow it to work through you. Your thoughts, intentions, and actions become attuned to the intelligence that underlies all existence. Manifestation is no longer a matter of effort, struggle, or manipulation. It becomes a natural unfolding, a response to the clarity, focus, and alignment of your inner consciousness. Belief, in this context, is not a passive wish or superficial hope. It is an active, living trust in the reality of the invisible, the certainty that what is true in the spiritual realm must inevitably express itself in the material. When you act from this place of faith, Your actions are no longer frantic or desperate. They are purposeful, inspired, and guided. You begin to notice doors opening without effort, solutions appearing when you least expect them, and opportunities aligning perfectly with your intentions. This happens because manifestation is the product of harmony between your inner state and the universal intelligence, rather than a battle of will against circumstances. Living by belief rather than force also transforms your relationship with desire and outcome. You no longer feel the need to control or manipulate the world in order to achieve your goals. Instead, you focus on cultivating clarity, alignment, and trust. Your desires are not abandoned, but their fulfillment becomes secondary to the deeper recognition that life, in its infinite intelligence, knows what is best and will bring it at the right time and in the right form. This reduces tension, frustration, and disappointment, replacing them with ease, patience, and joy. Over time, this approach changes the way you perceive life itself. You see that every experience, encounter, and situation is an expression of intelligence working to bring the highest good. You act from belief, live from trust, and experience reality as a mirror of your inner alignment. Manifestation is no longer a struggle against life. It becomes a natural expression of your faith, a living demonstration of the invisible made visible through your harmony with it. When you truly understand what it means to live by faith, your entire experience of challenges shifts profoundly. Most people perceive difficulties as threats, obstacles that must be fought, avoided, or endured. Life, in its unpredictable nature, can feel like a series of battles, and the mind responds with anxiety, frustration, or resistance. Faith, however, offers a radically different perspective. It teaches that challenges are not punishments or random misfortunes, but opportunities, invites to deepen trust, grow spiritually, and discover a higher intelligence at work in your life. When faith is fully embraced, difficulties are no longer external pressures that weigh you down. They become mirrors reflecting the areas where your consciousness can expand and your understanding can deepen. Living by faith transforms the perception of challenges because it shifts focus from the external situation to the inner reality. You begin to see that the real source of strength and solution is not in controlling circumstances, but in aligning with the invisible power that governs life. The problem, which once seemed overwhelming, now becomes a signal, a message that calls for patience, clarity, and trust. In this state, fear and frustration lose their grip because you are no longer dependent on appearances. You understand that what may seem like an obstacle is, in fact, a necessary part of the process that shapes your growth, character, and spiritual awareness. Faith also teaches you that resistance to challenges only intensifies suffering. When you struggle against a situation with doubt or worry, energy is wasted and clarity is clouded. By approaching challenges through faith, you release the need to control outcomes, and you open yourself to guidance, insight, and solutions that may not have been apparent from the perspective of the human mind. Challenges become lessons, each carrying the potential to strengthen your understanding of life's deeper order and your connection with the unseen presence that supports you. As faith deepens, you begin to perceive the synchronicity in every situation. What once appeared as coincidence or misfortune is now recognized as part of a perfect design. You start to notice that challenges often lead to unexpected growth, new opportunities, or relationships that would not have otherwise appeared. Difficulties are no longer feared, they are welcomed as instruments through which your trust, patience, and faith are refined. This transformation allows you to act with clarity, courage, and creativity, rather than from panic or desperation, making your responses more effective and your experience of life richer and more meaningful. Ultimately, faith transforms the perception of challenges by teaching that no situation exists outside of divine order or intelligence. Every experience, every obstacle, every moment of difficulty becomes a chance to deepen your trust in the invisible, to align more fully with life's natural flow, and to recognize the presence of a higher power orchestrating all things for your good. What once seemed threatening now becomes an opportunity for revelation, growth, and spiritual awakening, showing that the true power lies not in avoiding difficulties, but in the conscious, faithful way you meet them. As we draw together the understanding of living by faith, it becomes clear that faith is not simply a belief or a fleeting hope. It is a complete way of being, a conscious alignment with the invisible reality that underlies all life. When you embrace faith fully, it transforms every aspect of your existence, from the way you perceive challenges to the way you experience peace, freedom, and abundance. It allows you to step out of the constant struggle of trying to control life through human effort and into the natural harmony of cooperating with a higher intelligence that is always guiding, always supporting, and always providing. Living by faith teaches you that life is not a series of random events to endure, but a perfectly orchestrated journey designed to bring growth, insight, and fulfillment when you allow it to unfold. Faith brings freedom from fear and worry, not as a distant goal to achieve, but as a natural consequence of aligning your consciousness with the unchanging truth that life itself is always benevolent. Fear loses its power because it cannot survive in the presence of certainty. Worry dissipates because the mind learns to trust that solutions, guidance, and opportunities will appear at the right time. In place of tension and anxiety comes a calm assurance that carries you steadily through every circumstance. No matter how uncertain or challenging it may appear, this freedom is the foundation upon which inner peace grows, a peace that is constant and unshakable, because it does not rely on what is happening outside of you, but on the recognition of the eternal, intelligent presence within. Living by faith also allows you to align effortlessly with the flow of life. Rather than pushing against circumstances, struggling to make things happen, or forcing outcomes to fit your expectations, you learn to move in rhythm with life's natural currents. Opportunities, insights, and solutions begin to appear with ease, not as a result of frantic effort, but as the natural consequence of being in harmony with the universal intelligence that orchestrates all things. This alignment creates a sense of flow, a quiet certainty that you are in the right place at the right time, and that life is always unfolding in perfect order, even when the human mind cannot yet see the full picture. Manifestation, too, is transformed when lived through faith. You come to understand that it is not by force, struggle, or effort that life delivers what you need, but by belief, clarity, and trust in the unseen. When you act from this inner alignment, your desires are fulfilled not because you demand or control them, but because the intelligence behind all life responds naturally to your harmony with it. Faith teaches that the invisible always expresses itself through the visible when you allow it to work unimpeded, showing that the power to manifest lies not in doing more, but in trusting more deeply. Finally, faith transforms your perception of challenges. Life's difficulties are no longer threats but invitations to deepen your trust, expand your understanding, and recognize the presence of a higher intelligence guiding your journey. Every obstacle, every unexpected turn, becomes an opportunity to experience growth, patience, and insight. Through faith, you meet life not with resistance or fear, but with openness and trust, knowing that everything is designed to serve your highest good and ultimate understanding. When all of these truths are woven together, living by faith emerges as a complete, transformative way of life. It is a life where fear is replaced by trust, struggle by harmony, doubt by clarity, and chaos by peace. It is a life in which the invisible becomes the guiding reality, shaping every thought, action, and experience. To live by faith is to live fully awake to the divine presence within and around you, to move through life with confidence, serenity, and joy, and to know beyond question that you are always supported, guided, and provided for. Faith, when truly understood and practiced, is not merely a principle to follow. It is the very essence of life, revealing the boundless possibilities, freedom, and peace that await every soul willing to trust in what cannot be seen but can always be known.